Welcome back. Once again, this is Rafa continuing my amazing conversation, this beautiful masterclass with Lindsey Scharmyn. We're gonna keep focusing on this subject of spiritual guidance and connecting with our guides, with our allies, with the Akashic records, with the background information that is always floating around us, kind of like the Wi-Fi, but we maybe through the interference of trauma, maybe we are having a hard time connecting. But let's try to see how we can help people go from 0 to 100 in 10 days. No, I'm kidding. But going from 0 to whatever, to begin to reconnect with that and to know what the potentials of these kinds of connections are. And as I was just telling you, you reminded me of a phrase by something you said at the end of the first half. I hope people can see this. I'm going to move the image to the center a little.
Yes.
Can you see it? Yeah.
Yeah.
You were talking about trying, I don't know what, and then you caught yourself in the moment. I think it was with something with the tarot readings that you had been doing on that event. I think connected to that, you mentioned the I'm trying to something. I don't remember exactly, but what I remember is that you caught yourself, and at that moment I remember this moment from Star Wars, when Yoda says this: do or do not, there is no try. I love that moment.
It's absolutely true. Master Yoda is truly a master.
Wow.
It's no joke. Yeah, you could study Master Yoda and everything he said and did and learn so much from that. It's funny too, because not much of our pop culture, I shouldn't say that actually, most of our pop culture does have lessons and encodes wisdom in it. We just maybe have to have our attention in the right place. But yeah, Yoda is actually a master.
That's amazing how artists or writers or these, what they call the creatives, how they can channel wisdom so like without even knowing, how they are, or maybe it's the muses that are using them as vessels to transmit concepts and ideas and evolution for people. It's like if you wanted to create a creature that is wise and you had to base it on what you already know, you would probably, I don't know, you'd fall short maybe, because you're trying to create a character that is more than your current personality. So how is it possible that these beautiful nuggets of wisdom come through, right?
Right. Yeah, it's absolutely true. And so you can tell when artists are trying, right? And it feels contrived to you, and it feels flat and empty to you. And then you can tell when artists are just allowing and being and almost observing and just like channeling through, because it is like seemingly beyond them and it speaks to our collective consciousness. And I describe this in channeled material, which before I started channeling material, I found this, I could tell what channel material was sort of true or not, or was real or not, because if it seemed and felt to me like it was literally speaking to me right here, right now, then I know that it's real, because that is exactly what source feels like, no matter when and where you encounter it, no matter how sort of old it is or how ancient the text, you're like, oh, this is literally talking to me directly, to Lindsey, right? About me. Yeah. And when it doesn't have that, then I know it's not, it still might have some wisdom, it still might be great, but to me, it's not just truly channeled. So these sorts of pieces of art that we can find in pop culture are similar to me, right? If everyone can kind of look at it and relate and gain something from it, that's a little piece of our higher level intelligence, I would say.
Yeah, what about this one? This seems like it's taken from the Vedas, in the way it's described. This thing does that does the other, and the other does that. Now that's so beautiful. Fear is the path. I'm going to read it just in case somebody is not watching. Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. That's so beautiful.
Yeah. So beautiful. This is that thing, right? Never make a decision out of fear. And this is where so many people are challenged lately in the past few years, right? Should I do this or that? Should I act like this or that? What if I don't do this? Then what will happen? Well, if you're doing any of this out of fear, it's probably going to harm you. It's probably going to lead a direction you don't actually love, that doesn't actually serve your soul, that doesn't actually serve the soul of humanity. you have to act as far as you can. You have to release your fear as much as you can. And that actually gets to, channeling itself and connecting to guidance itself is, we were talking earlier about sort of traumas and how they're blockages and how the light sort of starts to dissolve them as it comes through. Well, you actually don't connect as fully to light, not just based on your traumas, but based on your fear or your doubt or your ego or your guilt or your shame. Any of these sorts of fear-based aspects of your mind and your makeup are going to be blockages for you, and you're not going to get messages as clearly.
Kind of like filters, right?
Yes, and their biases sort of, right? They're like, they color it, or they even just block it completely. Like it literally just can't come through. Then this is also why when we go into those places of, we're depressed that day, we're anxious that day, we're fearful that day, why we feel like, why am I so separate? Why can't I connect? Right? Why aren't my guides coming through to help me? And it's like, they are, you just can't hear them through this buffer of fear you have around you, right? They can't, it's not as easy for them to get through. And so I describe this often when people are asking me like, well, how can I start to channel? Or how can I start to get deeper in? And how can I start to access my psychic skills and my spiritual skills? It's the same answer every time. You heal yourself. And that's genuinely the work of our lives. And it's genuinely the most difficult work that we do. It's the hardest thing we do, is to heal ourselves truly. And it's the quickest route to direct spiritual experience and direct spiritual knowing. So the healing path is the spiritual path. They are one and the same. And I think a lot of spiritual, leaders and people, that I think they kind of hint at this, but I don't think it's very obvious to people, right? That's actually what's happening. We're even talking about it with the people who we get to work with one-on-one, right? We are seeing them crying and they're releasing. I'm often crying and releasing too, right? But we're seeing this happening, and that's healing in progress, right? And this healing that they're doing, after that, a lot of people will report, and maybe you've experienced this too, they'll be like, wow, for the next few days, there was just synchronicities all over. And I was like, I felt like I was receiving more messages. I was more connected. And that's true. Every time we go through a sort of dark path, or through our fear, or through our hurt, and come out the other side, it's like that. It's like a clearing opens up, and suddenly everything's feeling a little bit more obvious. Even we're like, oh, I mean, I always knew that, right? I just was blocked from really feeling it and being in it by this chunk of darkness, by this trauma, by this fear. So it is true, fear is the path to the dark side, but the opposite is also true, that healing and releasing things like fear and those negative emotions are the path to the light side.
And you know what, we are talking about trauma and fear and connecting, and how fear can distort the messages or color them in a particular way when we are connecting to these messages, or this inspiration through and going through I don't know if I'm expressing it right. When we are filtering, when the messages that come are being filtered by fear or by different traumas, and they get altered, this makes me think of not to necessarily get into this thing for too long, but just for a couple of minutes, those people that we call they, in the world, those people we put all the blame on, in part rightly so, because of some of their actions, but what we might call the dark side. Okay, let's talk about that. The dark side, we tend to, I'm getting this idea of how much trauma those people might have gone through and still may go through in their lives. And when you think about the dark side here on earth, it's many times it's people associated at least with nobility and the royals, and they have very conflictive families and conflictive upbringings, and it's so enlightening, I guess, to realize how these people are bringing actual it's hard to accept, but they are bringing healing and real messages but distorted through the prism of fear. And so what they are creating is possibilities maybe, or opportunities of growth, but through suffering, you know, for themselves and for whoever is affected by them, by their actions and their doings. So like imagine a person that's very healed and very clear, a saint, a guru, an enlightened being. They bring healing just through. I've been around people that I consider very much more advanced than me in the path, and being around them is like, it's so hard to express. It's magnetic, it's powerful, it's uplifting. And so their presence heals you. Just being around them kind of uplifts you. You, like you were just saying, you feel connected. You start seeing synchronicities. Things start moving in your life for good. But then we have the what would be the opposite of enlightened, but the endarkened beings of the dark side. Their presence actually creates distortions that people need to confront or to move through. So, and on the other side, just like this woman was screaming at you and you were able to actually grow from that negative experience, on the other side of this darkness that this extremely traumatized darkened people are bringing, through those experiences, there is, at least we can be kind of thankful, even though it's hard, that through those negative experiences there is also growth. And I guess to round up my point, I think is that they are connecting, but through the filter of fear. So they are unintentionally bringing healing, but through the path of resistance, I guess, or of suffering.
Yeah, there's actually a service even through them. Even that dark energy is a service. I was thinking as you were describing this, like how many Jedi were created because there was this darkness to face, right? And how many of those souls like wouldn't have become Jedi if they didn't have this darkness to face. And even when the Jedi are sort of wiped out and suppressed, how many then quote unquote regular people had to be like, okay, well then I need to step it up. Like I need to bring more healing and love and I need to work for the good. And how many of them wouldn't have done that otherwise? So even the darkness we can see as a service to us when we look at it that way, that we rise in equal accordance with how much darkness there is around us. There's also, this further lesson in the darkness, which is that it can't, you're describing these sort of fields of energy, right? Like these enlightened people have this field of energy. It's so warm and expansive and inviting and magnetic, like you said, and it's so beautiful. You feel it. You're healing already just by noticing it and being near it. Like it is powerful. And the darkness has the equal opposite, where you feel it and you're like, oh my God, and you're like, ugh, you're recoiling and you're like wanting to push it away and you're like disgusted and whatnot. But the truth is, the more you heal and the more you grow, the less that dark field can even affect you, right? You can see it, and instead of resonating back to it those same feelings and those same energies, you can just notice that it exists and you cannot vibrate back to it. So this was actually one of my lessons with that woman, right? A long time ago, maybe not even that long ago, I would have rose up back and I would have snapped back and I would have fought and I would have and it would have become a conflagration of just horror, right? Like it would have been really way worse for everyone there. And I wouldn't have then been able to channel through this energy for all the people who needed to receive that from me and all of this, right? But instead, I just looked at it and I thought, wow, she must be having a really hard day or time or whatever in her life. She's not healed, whatever that is yet. That must be hard for her. And I just, okay, that's you. I have nothing to do with this actually. And I'm just going to put up this boundary and not reflect it back at you and not reflect it back at me and just be separate from it. And it's interesting, that level of growth in me was great for me to see. Like I said, I would have reacted very differently at different points in my life. And I'm here now where I can have someone be that dark around me and just not take that up or take that in or reflect it back. That's a really huge accomplishment for me. But anytime we can look at this, anytime we are experiencing this from someone or something or this darkness, and if we're feeling it and we're reacting to it and we're like shining it back at them or any of that, all we're really saying to ourselves in the universe is, I also have that darkness. I'm also still being that darkness. Right. And so just like we're saying, this is actually a chance for us then to say, I'm not going to be this darkness anymore. I'm going to heal and release whatever that is in me that reacts or reflects that back. And I'm going to release it so fully that the next time this happens to me, I have nothing left in me that can reflect that. Right. All I have left in me that is this loving energy. And people confuse this, however, with sort of like pacifism or non-action or whatnot, right? And I always have to, I feel like I have to make,
which would be kind of that spiritual OCD again, that bypassing. Okay, oh, so I'm just gonna put the other cheek and let them kick my ass. No.
I'm gonna let them, right? I'm gonna let them be dark to me, and I'm gonna let them harm me.
It has to come from a particular place in you.
Yes, and it really is the non-engagement and non-reflection of it more than it is this passive, I'm not going to do anything, right? I told her, I hope you feel better and please stop talking to me. And then I put up a spiritual and emotional boundary, right? That her energy would just reflect off of that instead of me. And that I would be clear to hold this space for people. So I still took action. I still defended in a way, if you want to call it that, right? I had boundaries. I had strong boundaries. And this is really important too. We don't just let darkness like take us and rip us apart and pretend that that's noble. But we also don't have the energetic emotional reaction to reflect it back at itself. That only helps it grow. So both things are things that I think are really important for us to start to hold in response to what we call darkness. And again, when we get to that point, when we cannot react, not have the emotional equivalent come out and up in us, and then also have this strong boundary, then we can get to that place we were talking about earlier, where we then look at them and we say, that's actually me. I'm doing that right now. Why am I still doing that? And what might I need actually in this moment? So I didn't go to that point in this interaction, right? I was like, I don't really care what she needs. I need this space. So I'm just going to do this. This is the least I can do for me. But if we could get past that to a different, even higher place, we could maybe give the darkness something that it needs. And then maybe it could be less dark too.
Which is light.
Which is light and love. But we just can't do it in a place or in a way that hasn't first fully served ourselves. Right? That's something that people really mix up. And they say like, well, that's selfish, or no, you have to have a full cup before the cup can run over. And this is true on every level of spiritual development. So first, for me in that spot, all I could do was serve myself so that I could serve these other people who are getting readings. But, all I could do was hold that space. My cup was not full enough to also serve her. I did serve her in some way by not allowing her to continue, whatever. That's a different story. But in this way we're talking about, where we can actually maybe help the darkness heal itself, you cannot do that until you have first healed yourself completely, then found out how to hold really firm, strong, kind boundaries. And then you get to the point where you can maybe help the darkness heal itself. But you really have to see it that way too. I'm letting some of my cup run over if you will take it and if you will use it to heal yourself. I can't actually heal you, darkness, or anybody, even those who aren't dark, right? I'm not actually healing you. You're healing yourself. So all of those things I think have to be true, for that darkness to even begin to release in the world. But again, right, it starts with us. It starts inside of ourselves, and that's where all the work is, all of it. So people will ask, well, what are we going to do about this? What are we going to do about that? What do we do about the world? I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm going to keep just healing myself and healing the parts in me that react to it, that respond to it, that shine it back at itself in in that negative way that then reverberates and makes it even bigger and worse. And that's all I can do. And that is the best thing I can do. It is the highest service I can give the world, is to serve all of myself completely.
Yeah, you said so many beautiful things. Thank you so much.
And it's 11:11 here, so.
Oh, cool. Very good. uh, Many things came up, but then they just disappeared. The one thing that I did put down in my notes is the words practice and cultivation. So I think what was coming for me then was that the level or the possibility that you had, or the thing that you actually, I was trying to find a better word, but the thing that you did was not just that, because how do you find this place from where you can actually be doing the light work, let's say. It's not something that, again, from this OCD place that you just impose it mentally, but it has to come from a place within you. And that's where the practice and the cultivation comes up, because it's not like you woke up that day, you went to the event, and just out of the blue you were able to deflect the attack from the dark side, a pretty high level attack from the dark side, just because, I don't know, you were touched by an angel as you were going. No, it's because of all that cultivation that you've been doing beforehand. And so it's this thing of you do this thing for it, and the fact that you did it will actually solve that other thing over there, maybe in the future or in the past. But you don't do the thing so that you can solve the thing in the future, or so that you can, no, you do the thing for itself. But mainly, I think I'm getting a little bit away from my point. My main point is that you were able to confront that demon because of the light work and the spiritual work that you've done, the spiritual practice that you've been doing on yourself. And the same is the case for anybody else. Maybe there are rare exceptions, I don't know, but and those exceptions would be like, I don't know, incarnations of powerful spiritual higher dimension entities that for some reason they incarnate, but that would be a little bit deeper than what we're talking now. But in general, and in even more than general, in a very high percentage, it's practice and cultivation. So doing the meditation and watching your mind go crazy and allowing it to go crazy without trying to control it, but at the same time without running away from it. So getting up and finishing the meditation earlier. No, like if for example, if you're using meditation, you just, okay, so set a 10-minute meditation and be there, watch the thing for 10 minutes, watch the movie that plays in your mind for 10 minutes, even if it's a drama, even if it's a comedy, if it's a horror movie, whatever comes up in your mind, just be there with it, accept it, connect with your heart. You can tap your heart softly, or you can just press your hands against your chest to feel the heart beating and breathe, and just allow because everything that's coming up there is that it's that clot in the energy system. It's that trauma that's coming up in a symbolic way. It's kind of, this reminds me of Jung, his analysis of dreams, or the what's the other, active imagination, I guess it's the name. It's kind of like that, stuff will come up, and this is stuff that I'm also kind of realizing for myself as I'm speaking, right? So you just hold space for it and be there, and then you will be like, if you go to the gym and you cultivate your muscles, you will be cultivating a spiritual muscle or a spiritual organ that will be with you all the time from then on. And especially when you are practicing it regularly, you're practicing this muscle more and more, and you're able to bring light and consciousness and awareness and joy to more situations and to harder situations in your life, and start to resolve those energetic ties with people or with situations that keep recurring, or et cetera, right?
Right. And it is not the same thing to just say to yourself, oh, when someone is mean to me or aggressive, I'm just going to ignore them and let it go. And That's not the same thing, right? That's something that you've consciously chosen, and it is based in ego. You're like, I'm this person. I'm so good. Look at me. Right? But instead, actually being present in your emotional body and feeling that, oh, there's the reaction. That's what I'm going to release right now, instead of acting on it, right? I'm noticing this. I'm being present with it. My attention is present enough that I actively can see this happening and choose to do something else or be something else. Very different from playing this role, right? Here's me, here's my trappings, here's the way my hair is going to look. So I'm this type of person, right? I'm going to act like this. So I'm this type of person. Very different from actively being present for yourself. And this, my guides have been saying for a while now, like, talk about attention, because it is where we put our attention is what matters, right? And if we're putting our attention on what we hope to look like, or what we hope to be perceived as, then we are not putting our attention to what we actually are right now. And that is all that really matters. I remember, God, I was like 17. This is like 20 some years ago, right? I encountered this idea in this awesome book. It's still awesome today if anybody hasn't read it. It's Conversations with God. I really like it. And this is also direct channeling. This is the first time I encountered direct channeling. And it's a great book. But in this book, the God tells this man about, just noticing your thoughts, just that. Just this is a huge leap for most people, is just being able to notice your thoughts, and then to notice how your thoughts create your words, and then your words create your actions, and your actions create your habits. And now we're very much more familiar with this 20 years later, right? But at the time, it was like this revelation for me. I was like, wow, what are my thoughts actually? I don't think I've ever asked myself to just notice what my thoughts are, and to do this with radical honesty, right? Where you're, like you said earlier, like, you're just noticing, is it a horror show right now? Am I just thinking about banking, or like, what am I thinking about next year? Or am I thinking about 12 years ago? Or what am I thinking about? And to just notice that itself is the first step. Where is your attention at, right? Your attention is on the future. It's on the past. It's on this thing. It's on how, for me, a lot of the time at that time, I noticed most of my attention and thoughts were on how lacking in value I was, right? I was telling myself all the time, I'm not good enough. I'm not doing this right. No one loves me. No one likes me, like all these horrible things. And then it was really easy for me to see why I had spent so many years in so much darkness, because my thoughts were actively, constantly on that, right? So then just this concept that you could notice your thoughts at all, and that you could do it with honesty and presence was what really started to transform me. And now I'm to the point where things like that happen. This woman attacks, and I'm noticing actively, like, well, look at the part of me that jumps up to like scratch back. That's the part I'm releasing, right? I'm seeing it in the moment. I'm feeling it in the moment. And I'm saying to it, it's okay. We got this. We don't need to act like this anymore. Instead, we're going to do this, right? And this is a conscious attention that I'm now putting on. Instead, I'm going to invite love into my heart. I'm going to invite this part of me that's reacting to just release and let go, to trust me that everything's going to be okay, right? And I'm actively then putting my attention in other places. And that's something you can't pretend and you can't fake. So to cultivate, to go back to that idea, this just attention, where is your attention? To just notice your attention. It's another way of noticing your thoughts. What am I giving my attention to? Right. And just to be honest about it and not lie to yourself and not pretend, oh, I am like this. No, what are you actually thinking and actually putting your attention on? This is what literally will create all the transformation in your life, more and more and more, to the point where even your traumas, you will be able to stop in the moment that they are activated and see them and go, wow, look at that. Like, that's what that trauma is, right? And then you get even deeper into, where is it rooted in? What is the fear that it is attached to? And how do I then give myself the nourishment and the love to be able to release that, instead of just forcing it down and suppressing it? And like, no, I want it to actually be released. I want that clot, like you've been saying. I love that analogy. I want that clot to dissolve so that this channel is much more open. But you have to develop that, and it becomes easier and easier as you practice it more and more honestly, right? And this is why I say to people, when we're meditating or when we're doing any of these sorts of practices, it is not necessarily always helpful to have this like this goal of like empty your mind. Your mind should have nothing in it. That is a cool meditation also to eventually have as your goal. But really for me, the goal is just to notice. Just what is your attention on? What are your thoughts? What is your body doing? What does your foot feel like? Right? Like, what does the breath feel like when it comes in? And just to put your attention inside, just that for what probably 97% of people is a huge revelation. Like, this will lead to so much transformation to just be present and honest about what your attention is and what it's doing.
Yeah, something that came to me just now was baby steps. And then you said this. It's like, yeah, sometimes we want to do the big 1 hour meditation of the visualization and the angels and the sing choir and the mantra and eventually you will feel that you are that it's time. But for right now, if you're just starting out, and sometimes they give this advice, just for example, start with 1 minute meditation, 5 minutes, and eventually start. And when you hear that for the first time, you're like, 1 minute, what? I'm not gonna do 1 minute. I'm gonna start with 30 minutes, with 1 hour. And you try those for some time, you torture yourself, but at the same time it helps the body to like, because it's hard sometimes at the start when to sit in a straight posture. This is all in the example of like traditional sitting meditation, right? It's hard for the body because you've never done that. You actually have bad posture and you don't know it. And all these things that you were saying about attention, it's so close and dear to my heart as well, because this was one of the first lessons that I got as well. And I got it from a chemical teacher from LSD, Oh, wow. It was attention. Oh, yeah. It didn't give me anything else. It just attention and focus. Where is the focus of your attention was kind of the question that came to me at the moment. I didn't know what to do with that until many years later. That thing always stayed with me. And I was like, it was a riddle. It was like, what do I do with this question? What's the answer to this question? What does it even matter, this question? And eventually, many years later, I connected to the teachings of Ramdas. And I remember him saying that and teaching how to cultivate the witness. And then it all started to click, and what you were just saying, definitely I wanted to add the thing of cultivating the witness, because that's exactly it. You don't really notice that you can look at your thoughts. It's just something that is kind of in like a cascade in autopilot, and it's just running and running and running and running, and you are I don't even remember how it used to feel, but it's like you're just, it's not flow. It from what I'm saying, it seems like flow, but it's not flow. You're not even present. I don't know. It's so hard to describe. Yeah. Maybe you can describe it for me.
It's like an unconscious. It's like machinery, right?
Yeah.
It just goes. There's no consciousness to it. It doesn't even know what it's doing. It's just doing it.
Exactly. There's no pause. And with cultivating the witness, and with what you were saying, we learn to cultivate. What we are practicing and cultivating is that space between the thought and the action, I guess, or the response to the thought. So the woman does this, a thought immediately comes up, I'm gonna punch her in the mouth, and you're able to see the thought, you're able to see how it made you feel, not react to the thought or the feeling, just be there and okay, breathe that feeling, and then there is undiscovered territory after that, because if people haven't been practicing this for the time before they start, it's like, well, what happens now? So I had the thought, I saw it, now what? Okay, I don't know, continue meditating and not just meditating and staying inside like at home, but continue meditating and continue confronting is not the right word, but continue going out into the world and having these interactions and connections with people and with situations that challenge you and that allow you to gauge and measure how developed this spiritual organ is, because of how you respond to certain situations, you'll know. And don't be bad at or don't get mad at yourself if a situation makes you explode. Try not to, but if it happens, just try to use it as a measuring stick. Okay, that level of trauma release I still can't do. And then I had a question. Maybe you want to respond to what I just said, but if we could try to see how to release trauma, how to release those energetic clots.
Oh, it's such a great question. Because part of what we're describing too, like you were trying to say, like, how is this different from flow? It is different, but like, what is it about it? You could ask the same question about what we're describing and how is it different from the psychological presentation of dissociation, right? Like, how is that different? Because dissociation is not good, right? Where dissociation is, especially for those like myself who are well versed in trauma, or even if you're not, you can recognize this as I'm describing it. This is when you disconnect from all of it and you're not experiencing it anymore, right?
What you're saying, sorry to cut you off, but you made me realize how important this thing. Everybody is dissociated before they learn to cultivate this space. Maybe to a different kind of degree than somebody that a doctor would say is dissociated, but you're not present. It's so powerful.
Yeah,
continue, please.
That's exactly it. So when you think about it that way, you look around and you realize, again, 97% of people are walking around in a dissociative state to some degree, and they don't know it, and they don't feel that way. They feel very much like they're living intentionally and choosing things and moving around with consciousness. But it's not. It's like half unconscious, if not fully unconscious. It's ego, it's reactivity, it's responding. There's no analysis, there's no presence, there's no noticing, there's no observing, right? And so when you ask, how do you release this trauma? How do you actually heal the trauma? It is exactly the opposite of dissociation. And it's exactly what we're describing. It is that presence and that noticing, that returning to actual consciousness, which a lot of people don't want to do. And there's a reason why we're dissociating. There's a reason why we avoid it. And again, it's because it's hard. Because when you really are present with your trauma, when you're really present and you're watching it react and you're seeing it like lash out and you're feeling it too. And the feeling is what we're trying to avoid, most of us, most of the time, right? This is why we fill up our days with constant action, or even if we're lazing about, we're filling it with TV, we're mindlessly consuming it. And I'm not saying you can't watch TV. I'm just saying, right, we all have that experience where we've just mindlessly, done nothing and just wasted our time because we're avoiding whatever it is. At the emotional level, we're avoiding it. So when and this is the bulk of any healing work, is when you return to the trauma, which you can't always choose to do. Sometimes you have to be triggered in this way, right? This person comes up and does this thing and like you react. Sometimes you can do it intentionally though, and just go back to it in your mind and feel it, but you have to actually feel it. And there is no shortcut through that. There is no way to healing that doesn't go straight through all of that. So when you're healing, this is why, again, we see people crying in our sessions because they're healing, right? They're releasing that. They're actively releasing it by feeling it. You have to feel the anger, you have to feel the shame, you have to feel the guilt, you have to feel the fear, you have to feel the hurt. And it hurts. You don't want to feel, nobody wants to feel that way. But until you do feel it, it's not going anywhere, because the whole thing from the very beginning was that something happened and it hurt so bad we could not deal with it. So we pushed it aside, pushed it away, put it off somewhere else. And we developed a mechanism to protect ourselves from ever feeling that again. So for me, it was push it away and then get violent. Fight anyone who comes towards you with any of that energy ever again, right? And that doesn't actually heal anything. It makes worse. It makes more traumas. It makes more pain. But you don't know that in the moment that you're pushing this away and developing your mechanism, right? So I did that for how long? Unconsciously. I didn't have a conscious thought about it. It just was my reaction. It was just how I treated people. That's just what was happening until I developed enough awareness to see it and notice it. And I developed enough courage to say, I'm going to heal this finally. I'm going to actually just feel what it feels like for someone to just attack me. That hurts. Why did she do that? Right? Like that hurt my feelings. It doesn't feel good. I feel unsafe now. And I'm just being honest about all these feelings as they come up and go, yeah, it does feel that way. But again, if you remember what I said to myself in that moment, I said, don't worry, we can do this. We've got this. We're safe, actually. It's going to be okay. We're going to create this bubble. She's not going to be able to stop us. We don't have to do anything other than just this, right? I'm like talking to my inner child who originally had that trauma, who is ready to fight. So we have to feel it. We have to really see it for what it is. And we become more and more conscious of that whole process, like I said, where I really see the original wounding. I see the original reaction to it. I see what I was trying to do, and I feel all of it. And I can just do all of that without cutting off from it, without dissociating from it. Right? It's very similar, like I said, to what we think of as dissociating, because I am just observing it. But the difference is that I'm actively feeling it, sympathetic vibration, instead of this rejecting and disconnecting fully, right? They both have this separation aspect to them. They both have this sort of distance aspect to them, but one is in rejection and disconnection, and the other is in full acceptance and presence. And that's the main difference.
Yeah, definitely. Presence. That's the word. Totally.
Yeah. So it's hard. And, even, I should say, especially people who don't think they have trauma, they do.
Good luck.
Like I just say to people, like, I know we get sick of sometimes hearing about trauma and healing and all of this, but I just say, we'll know when we don't have trauma, because we will be that glowing person who's just always in sort of peaceful bliss that people just heal by being near, and we'll be that, right? And if we're not that yet, then we have trauma still to heal. Yeah. It's just hard sometimes to see. It's hard sometimes to find. But that's why, again, the darkness is actually doing us a service by showing us exactly where it is.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Lindsey. That was a beautiful sharing on a gold nugget on healing and releasing trauma. And and again, I'll bring that other side of don't be hard on yourselves. Sometimes, like you were saying, like Lindsey was saying, sometimes we are not ready to release a particular trauma. But that's probably because, again, of this exercising and practicing the spiritual organ. There's probably other small traumas that you can train against or train with, and start releasing those smaller ones, because sometimes going straight to the root of the root of the root is not that easy. It's probably like trying to I don't know, to move a mountain with a finger. It's not going to be that easy, but maybe you can start moving a little rock, then a little pebble, and slowly with both hands, then becoming a little bit stronger, and eventually, even though it might seem impossible at some time, and you might get frustrated and anxious and like, okay, when is this gonna? Is there a point when it's over? When you are? Do you know? I mean, I know I still have a lot to heal, a lot, and I'm thinking like, okay, I do this kind of thought experiment. Okay, when I'll release this trauma, that one, oh yeah, oh, and that one, and oh, and that other one, and the one that's behind all of these, and then what? Is it actually possible to like become friends or actually say goodbye to the root traumas, or are they in some way kind of necessary for our functioning?
On the grandest scale, I do actually feel like that is what we are doing as a species collectively, is healing all the way back to the root of whatever happened to humanity to get us here, where we're in this place,
right? Yeah.
Right, like what happened.
The dissociation from oneness, I guess that's the main trauma. That I call it nostalgia of God, or something like that.
which really we're like heading back to all the time. So maybe that's part of how we heal that, is just to recognize like all the while we've been moving back towards oneness again. So there was never really any separation to begin with. But, you know, it starts with this in ourselves, right? And we're healing whatever. And I honestly, I don't push it. I don't ask for more. Like, it'll come, right? Like that woman will pop up and scream, or something else will happen, and that'll be plenty for me to deal with, right? In each moment. And like you said, if I see like, oh man, I just had the opportunity and instead I like yelled or I got angry and I like tried to control the situation and like, why did I do this again? And like, well, just because I did, you know, it's okay. Just forgive yourself and then and make a note. Like, next time I'm going to be more present. I'm going to ask my guides and my allies to like help me in the moment. Like, remember, look what you're doing. Notice it. Oh, okay, I'm doing it. Thank you. And then that's going to be good enough, more than good enough. We're healing all the time. But once we heal more and more of ourselves, I've noticed at least, then we get past life stuff. It's like, oh, I didn't even know that was there. And here's this thing. And oh my God, it's true. It actually reflects in my current experiences in life like this. I can actually see the patterns still playing out. And so now here's this next thing to heal. And then we start helping other people do the same. And now we're working on this like collective level of healing that goes all the way back, our epigenetic traumas. And this is really, like I said, part of why when people ask me like, what are we supposed to do about these, you know, psychopaths that seem to run the world, or whatever is going on with that, what do we do about this and that? I just say it's still within. You're still just healing yourself, because there'll be more and more and more brought to you to help heal, that is still you, whether it's in someone else or not, right? And that goes all the way back. It goes all the way back to that original trauma, this fall from heaven or fall from grace that we seem to experience, you know, or whatever else happened along the way. So, you know, when, I don't know when we will all be healed, but I just trust in that process so deeply, because I've seen how transformative it is for me and for others. And I truly believe that this is how we save the human race, save Earth, and, you know, move forward into a much brighter future. But I do, you know, people talk about, oh, there has to be darkness for the light to exist, and you have to experience darkness and trauma in order to feel the love and the light and all of this. And it's not untrue, right? That is true. And it's especially true for, you know, beginner sort of level stuff. But you even read about it in like the Hermetic texts and other places, that there is also a level you get to where you know the darkness, you see that it exists, you don't have to experience it. And it's similar to what we were talking about, right? I see that woman screaming and freaking out at me, and I do still have something in me that's reactive, right? So I do still have some healing, but at some point I would be in a place where I could see her screaming at me and not have anything left in myself of that, right? And that's true too. So you don't have to continuously experience this over and over again. That's not true. I feel like that's a misconception of a sort of new age and spiritual movements, is that you have to dive into the darkness over and over again in order to get up to the heights. And it's not that spectrum exists, and just knowing it exists is more than enough. But you can heal and consciously move yourself further and further to where you can just be in the light. It is actually true. You can still know a thing and have gnosis of it without experiencing it.
Yeah, I love what you're saying. Earlier, I wrote down the darkness works for the light, and it's what you're just saying. And right. And rather, maybe a better way to say it is that the light will use any darkness as an opportunity to create more light. And another like analogy that comes to me for talking about this, if you're like in a crowd of people, or for me, for example, I'm in a crowd of people and someone screams, "Hey, fatty!" I wouldn't even turn around, because I don't identify with being fat.
Yes.
And if somebody came to me and screamed at me, "Hey, you're so fat," I wouldn't get offended. I would know that there's, okay, this guy's kind of an asshole, but I wouldn't get offended, because I don't have a trauma connected with being fat. So, yes. But maybe if they came and they said, "Oh, you're so skinny," that would kind of get me a little bit. But if they told me, so what I'm trying to get at is this thing that you were just saying. Okay, I'm not gonna repeat what you said, because you said it perfectly. And I was thinking, maybe as we are starting to get close to the end of this second hour, which was also beautiful, fantastic, and amazing, I wanted to say two more things. So one is something that you reminded me, which sometimes it seems so ridiculous, which is asking God for help, asking the universe for help, asking your guides, for example, to help you be present when challenges come. And for, you know, this seems so crazy. What? I'm gonna say these words? Okay, it's like you don't tell people you are loved, you are worthy, but when you do, it has a great impact in people. You don't actually ask in like, even say it out loud, be by yourself if you want, you can light a candle, whatever kind of ritual puts you in the mood, but, or then eventually you see it work in your life, and eventually you're like just walking down the street and you have a job interview, or you're going to meet with somebody that's kind of difficult sometimes, and you just go, oh yeah, please help me be more present, be more compassionate with this situation. You start doing it with much ease because you've seen it work. And so yeah, I wanted to bring that up. And then I don't know if I asked you, maybe you want to respond to that first, because I have a final closing question that I ask all the guests, and I'm not sure if I asked you last time.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I do hope more and more people ask for more and more help for anything, even if it seems silly or mundane or trivial to them, because our guides, our allies in God, and this loving energy, there's nothing they find trivial or time. They're not like bothered, like, why are you wasting my time with it? They're infinite beings of infinite love. They're happy to help and they want to help. So it's not only just that you can ask them, it's that you're serving yourself, you're giving yourself love when you ask, right? And we all deserve more of that. And probably more of us need to remember that that's true and ask for it and receive it, because that in itself is very healing. So I ask all the time for everything. Like, help me do this, help me, whatever people need to hear in this show, like help me be present for that, help this pain in my head go away so that I could be more clear in this moment. It doesn't matter to me. I will ask for anything at this point because I know I deserve it and I know they want to help. That's their whole thing. They love it.
We might even say that asking for that help is part of the reason why we're here as well. You know, we tend to forget because, I don't know, we've learned it seems silly or dumb or woo woo, or I don't know. But actually, when we ask for that kind of help and assistance and guidance, we are doing something that was explained to me. You're opening the door to God. You know, is this thing of free will. You know, they won't interfere if you don't ask. They will be like holding you lightly, let's say. They never forget you, but it is when you ask that they rise you up, you know. And so that's why I was thinking that it's part of the reason why we're here, you know, because when we do this asking, we get the best results. So I mean, why not do it? So, but again, yeah, it's a practice.
It is a practice, and it is that acknowledgement that you deserve it, and choosing to live in the acknowledgement that you deserve that, and choosing, like you said, that free will. I choose this light, I choose this love, and I open the door to that. I just had a channeled message come through this week, which anybody can read on Substack. rogueways.substack.com is where I'm putting my channeled messages now, and also on rogue.locals.com, which is the sort of Facebook like community that you can come join if you want to be a part of that. But the channeled messages go in both those places, and the one of the ones, at least this week, was exactly that. They were just saying, you know, it's when you ask that we can be more powerful. So ask, you know, invite. Like, we can be here, like you said, kind of from afar, like shouting love towards you and hoping you hear it. But it's when you ask that we really get to come in and be present. So do it. And then like trust it, believe it, and feel it, receive it, be open to that, because that's what's most powerful. And like we said, you got to give it to yourself first. So do it. That's healing in itself.
Yeah. Remind me, how, what's that website? Substack?
rogueways.substack.com.
Okay, I'm gonna see if I can show that one.
So it has a lot of my old writings on there, but for the past month or so, my guides and allies were like, you need to start doing channeled messages. They said daily, and I was like, well, let's just say daily and get as close to that as we can, because that's a lot, kind of. So it ends up being a handful of times a week, right, that a channeled message comes through, and I post it there. So
which one is it? Is it a Holy Trinity?
Wow, I don't remember now.
Oh, okay, no, that's all right.
Yeah, I think it's the most recent one, so it should be like the biggest one.
Yeah, I think that's the one. This one.
Yeah, I think it's
perfect.
That.
Yeah,
yep,
no, I definitely invite people. Oh, this one I need to try it. Okay, no, I don't have a thing here, but it's all right. I definitely invite people to. Nah, don't worry. I invite people to check out your writings and to check out your website as well on rogueways.org. Here we go. I think maybe we can read it here. Let's see.
It has a little bit more here, at least. It has the sort of intro.
Yeah, so people are very much invited and welcome to check out all of Lindsey's stuff. As you can probably tell by now, she's amazing. Lindsey, let me just end our second conversation by, first of all, thanking you so much for your time and for your openness, for your energy, your connection, your affinity. I want to ask you one question, which is, oh, well, actually two, but let's do one, and maybe after this one, the second one. So this question that I want to ask is, what is the one thing that brought you to where you are?
I have to say love. Mm-hmm. If I could summarize it in one word, even and especially when I literally believed that love didn't exist, and that it was all just chemicals and synapses and mechanisms that didn't matter and were senseless and mindless, even and especially then, it was love. It was the people who had love for me, despite that I didn't hold it for myself long enough for me to remember that I had to hold it for myself and invite it in more and more, and then hold it for others too. So love is that eternal force that really is everything, right? When we say God, I just mean love. We talk about the ether, it's just love. We talk about the Akashic, it's just love, right? We talk about spirit, it's just love, all of it. So that's my answer.
That's a very beautiful answer. Thank you so much. And maybe you want to try, I don't want to put you on the spot, I'm sorry, but earlier I thought we could come up with an intention or an affirmation that people could have for I don't even remember what particular point I had when I thought that we could bring an affirmation or an intention, but in connection with all of this that we've been speaking, with the healing of trauma, which came up naturally, it was very beautiful, to want to speak about connecting with spirit, and that the conversation naturally went to healing trauma. That was beautiful. And so maybe there's a particular affirmation or an intention that people can have present when they are trying to connect with spirit, when they are practicing their meditations or cultivating the witness, or in connection to all of this. I leave it to you or to your guides to see what comes up.
Well, they brought it. They want to keep going with it too, but I think we have to keep it a little bit shorter for people to actually use it. So, well, we'll just add one more part they want to add.
Yeah. Yeah, then we can do two versions if it was necessary. But let's
it wasn't that much longer. They shortened it. Okay, so awesome. This is the mantra that we can all use, and every day on this. If you go take the mantras and meditation course, one of the keys is, bring it in intentionally multiple times throughout the day and say it out loud with as much presence and actually feeling the energy of the words as you can. So it's almost its own meditation. Like you said, you can do it for 1 minute 5 times a day, or you can do it for 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes at night, or whatever you want to do, but just actively choose how you're going to do it, how often, when, and right, and then do it. And this is the mantra, this is the affirmation that they are sharing with us today, that I think summarizes really well all of what we were just talking about, and probably the entirety of the show. So I'll read it for us now. And they say, I ask for and accept love to bring me into deeper connection and presence for full transformation. I always want to say amen at the end, like it's a prayer, but I ask for and accept love to bring me into deeper connection and presence for full transformation.
Beautiful. Very, very beautiful. Thank you so much, Lindsey. Okay, everybody, you can find Lindsey on her website. You can read all her stuff. You can get a reading. You can get a tarot readings for the past lives. And it's beautiful also to start when you're ready to start connecting with your past lives and start not just healing that, but also through that bringing stuff into this one that can also assist you to continue growing here. But that might be a conversation for next time. Rogueways.org is Lindsey's website. You can find me on Instagram if you want to chat with me. It's @manrafa is my username. And the Patreon, if you would like to support and help the show to continue growing, it's patreon.com/Rafa Martinelli. It's my name. And yeah, I love the energy that is generated in our conversations. Thank you so much, Lindsey. I don't know if you have some closing words.
Oh, thank you so much as well. You bring it out. You're a great host. And so I'm so grateful to be here and to be invited to have this masterclass with you. I know everybody got a lot out of it. So I'm grateful for that as well. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your week. And we're sending you much love. And do the practices. That's the most important thing about the practice, is to actually practice it. So if you want the results, you need to practice. So bye-bye, everybody. Thank you, Lindsey. Thank you, everybody. Bye.